2 decades ago, a young rapper from Queensbridge released an album that sparked a hip-hop revolution. That album was Illmatic, and it made him an instant icon and a musical hero.
Today, Nas is regarded as one of the most important and influential MCs to ever hold the mic. Here to discuss their new documentary about the rapper, Nas' Time is Illmatic, is writer, producer Erik Parker and director-producer 19.
Yes,
welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us. We're happy to be here.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, gosh. Here we go.
Can we talk about just how important Illmatic is in the hip-hop pantheon?
Yeah, Illmatic, you know, when it first came out in 1994, you got to go back to that time.
I can't believe 20 years ago.
It's been 20 years.
My goodness.
You know, 19 is from the D.C. area. I'm from New Jersey. And all across the country, there were pockets who could relate to that same story in Queensbridge that Nas was talking about, this young kid growing up under all these adverse conditions. And we all were touched by it because he spoke for us.
So how did you all come up with this idea for this documentary, and how did you convince Nas to be a part of it? 19?
Well, we could both talk about that. In 2004, Erik was a music editor at Vibe magazine, and I was an artist, a street artist, but also experimenting and doing a lot of videos. So Erik decided that the print wasn't enough to really cover the legacy of this album. So he called me up and says, you know, are you interested in making a DVD about it, a music DVD? And initially I said, yeah, let's do it. We interviewed Olu Dara's father, Nas's father. And we realized that first interview that it wasn't just a story about music. It was a story of legacy, of family history, of culture, the blues, the jazz, all the books that they read. And it just couldn't be encapsulated in a music documentary. So we really wanted to tell the story of something much bigger.
You know, in the hip-hop community, it's already been well received, but it's also been extremely well received outside of the community as well. Did you expect it to have quote-unquote crossover appeal? And why do you think it's resonating with audiences?
Well, when we made the film, it was a bunch of us, just a bunch of friends, me, 19, and a group of us who had a big, strong passion for the album.
Right.
And when we made it, we really just wanted to tell the story of Illmatic. As it started to grow, as 19 was saying, so much opened up to us, and we realized it was a much bigger story than just a hip-hop story, a much bigger story than just a rap story. It was an American story. It was about the history of a people. And Nas told that in Illmatic. And now because America is ready to understand it, so much has happened in America, now we can look through the lens of Nas, this young kid who made Illmatic, and finally understand what we were all going through back then.
And this also relates to the social issues. This just isn't a Queensbridge story. This can relate to what's going on in Chicago, what's going on in Detroit, issues that are going on in Ferguson right now. So our film really opened up a bigger dialogue about, you know, these issues told through the lens of Nas, his brother Jungle, and Olu Dara.
Well, what was the most surprising thing you learned about Nas while working on this project?
For me, you know, Nas, all these little tidbits of musical information for music nerds like myself and 19 who love this album. It was great to hear all that behind the scenes making of the album. But the most surprising thing was to understand the people who made it happen, where Illmatic actually came from, what influenced Nas to make Illmatic, and that was a lineage. It was generations, a culmination of people. And by the way, this backdrop is amazing.
We take care of you here.
Let's talk about that lineage, though. You mentioned Olu Dara. His father is a famed jazz musician.
Right.
Talk to us about the influence that he had on Nas's career, both shaping him as an artist and as a man.
Well, you know, early on we learned about that Nas was listening to a lot of jazz, a lot of blues. His family had a really warm, loving home in Queensbridge where they had a vast amount of books. We talk about those books in the movie. You know, the history of African philosophy, Taoist philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, Soul on Ice, Malcolm X. And they were so well read, but they also had such a vast knowledge of music. So they were listening to African music, jazz, and just experimental music as well. So here's this young kid growing up in the hub of Queensbridge, seeing everything that's going on around him, and able to really channel it through music that he's learning. So it's really a great understanding to really learn about what surrounded him, you know, what he was exposed to.
Now, we've had this debate time and time again. Erik and I know each other back from the Vibe days when we were writing cover stories for Vibe, right? In the hip-hop, if there was a hip-hop Mount Rushmore, if you will, would Nas make the hip-hop Mount Rushmore?
Well, for us, I mean, that's a no-brainer. But, you know, there are different generations.
Why hasn't he achieved the same sort of level level of mainstream success to say a Diddy or a Jay-Z or even like a Lil Wayne or a Drake.
Yeah, if you look at the thing that Nas Time is Illmatic does as a film, it really goes a long way in explaining Nas the person and what he's about and what's important to him. In the end of the film, we see this scene, and I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but you'll see the film. He's at Harvard, and there's a fellowship named in his honor. And these type of things that were really important for him now are different than they were then. He just wanted to always just tell his story and be honest. And now he's really humbled. You can tell he's humbled, and he's come such a long way that people actually understand his story and want to know more about it. So he never really did chase, you know, the commercial success. I'm sure there was some of that in there, and that's part of his, you know, background as well. But when you look at Illmatic, this was just a person who was telling an honest story for all of us, actually.
Well, real quick, how do you think he's evolved in the last 20 years?
Well, we've seen the development as a family man. You know, now he's got a teenage daughter. He wrote a song about. He's got a young son, and he's really, you know, really embracing family life. Really, we're seeing him give back more about, you know, being more about just being around family, encouraging, you know, others to be more positive, working with purpose. And there's a lot of real positive things that he's doing that really don't make the news.
Yeah,
you know,
UNICEF ambassador. I didn't realize that. And all that he's done philanthropic work. It's great. So where can we catch this film, gentlemen?
Wow, you can catch it. It's on demand in iTunes right now. It's also in theaters. It came out last week in theaters, and it's still playing around the country. You have to. It's expanded, so it's growing. It's been sold out. It's been a phenomenal reception. And the great thing about it is generations come to see this film, not just the hip hop. And this is what me and 19 wanted from the very beginning. So you can see it. You can check out timeisillmatic.com, and you can find listings and on demand in iTunes.
All right, thank you both so much for being
We have
here.
an education curriculum which is with the film, and it's super important that the film will be taught in high schools and kids will be able to learn about our history, our culture.
Perfect.
All right, thank you so much both for joining us. We'll be right back with more Rise Entertainment 360.